And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning into a very special edition of the People's Pie, off the record of the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than our brother, friend, a martial scientist, artist, a historian, and so much more, a family man, and so much more. None other than Brother Alex. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam, brother Josh. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And for those who are watching, please make sure we go back and watch part one as well as part two, because our brother has been breaking down, I mean, just amazing with his history and his current day information as well as projecting into the future. Brother Alex, the first question that we have for you today is when was the first time that you heard the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, I had mentioned to you before the book that brother Jabril had. It's an unpublished book that he had mentioned once, called something like Farrakhan, A Man on God's Straight Path.
Mm.
Paraphrasing, it was something like that. And he said that on the cover of the book was an illustration of a man on his way to a goal. But the path that the man was on his way to the goal was anything but straight. It had crooked lines, and sometimes it looked like he had turned back. Sometimes it looked like he was going away from the goal. And he said the purpose of that illustration was that to you and I, when you watch a man move towards a goal, it often looks like the path is not straight. It appears crooked to us. It appears that maybe he's doing something else. He's giving up. He's going backwards. But as far as Allah may see it, or as far as Allah sees it, he's doing exactly what he needs to do to get to where he needs to go. Because those detours and those turns, he ends up picking up things that he needs that will carry him forward to the goal. Now, I say all of that to say that, because when you asked me this the first time, I gave you an answer, and the answer was true. But in the time past that, it's almost like it poked my mind, and I started seeing that the coming into the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you see Allah's hand more intricately and more delicately moving you towards that. So, for instance, when I was 18 years old, I found myself in a position where, no, I put myself in a position where I was living in a crack house.
Mm.
Um, I was in school and I had gotten into an altercation. And as a result of the altercation, I was on the run from the authorities. I had a very good friend of mine who was he had a drug business, and he set me up in a crack house, one of his crack houses that I was supposed to oversee, I guess you would say. Now, this was a very low point in my life. I never really aspired to be a drug. I never really wanted to be. I had a lot of friends that were drug dealers, but that's not something I wanted to do. But I kind of felt lost because prior to that, I remember going into a park in Brooklyn to smoke some weed one night, and it started to rain. I was out there by myself and I started crying because the conversation I was having with myself was that things are going to only get worse for you from now
Mm.
on. I knew I had taken a turn, like the illustration on the book. I knew I had taken a turn, and I felt like hopeless, lost, and in a sense doomed. So I went to work for my friend in this crack house with that in mind. I didn't know what else to do, nowhere else to go. And because of my state of mind, that's why I said I lived there because I didn't leave. Even when it was
Mm.
time to eat, I would go up the street and grab food and bring it back to the crack house. So, or people would bring me food. So everything I did there. Now, as you can imagine, a crack house is an area where you can't really, not really, you can't trust anybody. Treachery and mayhem is all around you. So to the point where every night when it would start to get dark, there was a brother that was there that actually, well, he really lived there. And I would pay him every night to keep me from falling asleep
Mm. Mm.
and asleep. Um, The sun would go down. I'd give him the money. I said, whatever you do not let me fall asleep. So not only could I not sleep, I couldn't even bathe, to the point where I went weeks without bathing. And it became so uncomfortable that I would look and the bathroom would be right there. The water worked, hot water, everything you need to take a shower. And I would get up because I couldn't take it anymore. I would stand up to take a shower. Then I would look around and I would sit down. I said, can't take a shower. Because it wouldn't be wise to go in there, close the door, take clothes, take a shower. Then you no telling what's going to happen when you come out. So I'm saying all of that to set the stage for what I wanted to say. There was one individual that came through there to get high. His name was Mo. And Mo was, and I don't like to use the word crackhead because you never know who you're talking to. Crack wasn't even though like comedians, people like to kind of use it lightly, but to a lot of people, it's not a lightweight word. It wasn't a lightweight time. You have people that may have been caught up in that themselves. You may be talking to somebody whose mother was smoking crack and she had to do all manner of things, or people that have lost family. So I don't use it lightly. However, the crackhead was a distinct personality and character in our communities, whereas they had certain ways and certain movements. Like you see somebody do something and say that was a crackhead move because crackheads move a certain way. So you kind of have to use the term because it's very descriptive of that, almost like a species of people that we had at that time, and I guess still now. So Mo was a crackhead. But what stuck out with him was a few things. One was that the whole time I was down there, Mo was the only crackhead that I saw that had a real crack pipe. Mm-hmm. Everybody else had manufactured. It was either pie antenna, Tylenol bottle, crushed up soda can that they would use for pipe. But he had a real pipe. Not only did he have a real pipe, he had a little leather case with where he kept the pipe, and he kept the pipe paraphernalia, crack paraphernalia. Even had cleaning supplies to keep his pipe clean. Only person I ever saw like that. Mo also had a car. Mo also had a wife that he would get high all day. At night he would go home to his wife. Mo also not had a job. He had a business. He was a painter. He was doing for self. So he stuck out in terms of the other addicts that were there. One day, it was a particularly nice day. I remember this very well. I looked outside and I could see the sun shining. You could tell it was a nice day out there. It wasn't in there, but you could tell out there was a nice day. And he and I found ourselves in what would be the living room of that apartment. And for some reason, there wasn't a lot of traffic that day. It was very quiet. It was almost like a regular living room. And he and I were sitting there, and people always teaching you how to read and write and add and subtract and don't go here and don't go there. But I think that was the first time somebody had told me something that I wanted to know, that I was glad to hear. I felt the impact of him teaching me, and I remember him having my full attention. I wanted to know. I was pleased that he was telling me this. And then he said, yeah, so it means, peace be unto you. He said, so when somebody says that to you, then you say, and then he had my attention even more because I didn't know there was another part to it. So he said, yes, well, Lake of and that just blew my mind because I was glad to get that. Then there was a response to it. So it washed over me so much that feeling. It's like the song Euphoria. I was in a euphoric state of somebody telling me something, and I was so focused. But at a certain point, either out of the corner of my mind or the corner of my eye, I saw Muhammad. I saw him see me, meaning that he looked at me and he saw how enthralled I was with what he was saying. And like that, Muhammad was gone and Mo came back.
Mm-hmm.
Like he saw me and he was like, man, this nigga listening to me. I got him. And he started with the game. So and that quick, that feeling that I felt, as soon as I saw that, it was gone that quick, and I was right back in the nasty crack house, smelling myself, itching. All of the no, everything just came back to me, and I remember feeling not hurt, but sad and disappointed because I was actually enjoying that moment, and just like that, it was gone. The next year, 1989, I find myself sitting in Baltimore City Jail. And anybody that knows Baltimore or Baltimore City Jail or 1989, that was one of the worst places you could be as far as jails in the country. And it was a very old jail. It had bars. Now, brother Josh, anytime you run across people, they tell you all type of jail stories and what have you. When you hear them say there's bars, you in for a story, because Malcolm X said, he said, I'm not saying that they shouldn't build prisons. I'm saying they shouldn't have prisons with bars. He said, behind bars, a man never reforms. He never completely gets over the memory of the bars. Bars are different. One, those are they don't make prisons and jails like that anymore. So if you find yourself, unfortunately, in one, it's an old place. I mean, they have maybe 100 years of suffering in the walls and the bars. It tends to bring I've seen it brings the worst out of people. So I'm sitting in this cell with another guy, and I remember the toilet didn't work. So it's not but that big. I forget the dimension, but it's a very small cell. I'm in there with another guy. The toilet doesn't work. So every time we use the toilet, we would just put a piece of cardboard over it, but you could still smell it. And there's bars. And that period I told you in that crack house, that was my lowest point until then. City jail was even lower. And not only did I the misery of being there, but it was also the fact that they were talking about giving me life, 10 to life, 17 to life. So that was my first experience of being hopeless because I didn't have Islam. So there was everywhere you look, there's no hope. I can't leave. And they talking about keeping me forever. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I was just sitting there miserable. And just like in the crack house, it was a beautiful day. You could see the sun. You could tell it was a beautiful day out there, not in there. And in the midst of my misery, a brother started to sing. And I swear to you, it was the most beautiful song I had ever heard. So much so that I remember getting up and walking to the bar so I could hear better. And for whatever reason, I know now, but for whatever reason, I couldn't make out the words. I just thought that the song was just so beautiful, I couldn't understand the words. And I'm listening, and it's just like when the brother was telling me Assalamu alaikum, I remember how hard I was listening to him. That's how I was listening to that song. I had never listened to anything because I couldn't figure out the words. So I'm washed over by the beauty of it, but at the same time, I'm trying to understand it, and I couldn't understand it. Then automatically, it just stopped. He stopped singing, and I was right back to cell, the broken toilet, the other guy, my problems. It was probably I was so lost and so uninformed. It was probably months later till I realized it was the Adhan.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to, I said, the crooked path. So I was living a crooked life. I'm in a crooked place. The guy that's down there singing the Adhan was probably a crooked brother because he was in that cell for something, right? And possibly innocent, but most likely not, right? And to this day, when I hear the Adhan, I automatically compare it to the Adhan that brother was saying. I never saw his face because he was in a cell too. And I hear it, no matter how beautiful it is today, I think back, I said, nah, he ain't got nothing on that brother. Right? So anyway, the next year, 1990, I end up in Danbury, Connecticut. Because of my age, by this time I'm 19. And the fact that it was my first conviction, they sent me to what they call a low-level security prison in Danbury, Connecticut. And that's the prison to show Orange is the New Black. That's
Mm,
that's the prison that they're in, because when
mm,
I was there, they had half was male, half was female.
mm,
But when they moved the men out, they made it a full women's prison. That's what the lady that wrote that
mm,
there. And the first person that JR was from Harlem by way of, originally he was from Alabama. And when I met him, he said, I'm down with Frank Lucas and the Country Boys. At the time, I didn't know who Frank Lucas or the Country Boys were, but I always said I was remembering because he said it like it meant something, like it was important. So let me remember that. And at some point, I guess J.R. Cunningham he had been a 5%er. Now, let me back up 2 steps and say that when you have a case and you know you're guilty and you know you're probably going away, the only bright spot, the only light in that for me was that at least when I go in, I could pick up my lessons. Because when I was 12, I was introduced to the 5% Nation. And I never, I got sidetracked with other stuff I was doing, but I always was inclined, always wanted that. And so no matter how I looked at it, the only bright spot was if I got to go to prison, at least I could get back into that. That was my goal. So a lot of people, when they go to prison, they're looking for groups and they're looking for people to get with. That wasn't me. Of course, at that time, I was the youngest person in the prison. And JR is the first person to mention the words or the name of the book, Message to the Black Man. I had never heard of it. I had never heard of Elijah Muhammad. He said, you need to get the book, Message to the Black Man by Elijah Muhammad. He told me about Jay Rogers. He told me about other books as well. And I became so enthralled by books that he told me some books. The next day or maybe the day after, I showed up and I had like an armful of books. And he looked at me like, it looked like I had left the prison, went to the store and bought some books and came back in the prison. He was trying to figure out where I got all the books from. But I had found them in prison. They were all Black books. And I remember he took one of the books, and it was one of those like different chapters about different things, but it was a Black book. When he got to the part about Malcolm X, he started flipping through it. And he was like, nah, that's bullshit. Nah, that's not that. And he just started critiquing the book. And I remember being so fascinated that this brother in prison with me, this drug dealer, was so smart that he was analyzing this book and saying that it really wasn't all it was cranked up to be. I wanted to be like that. And so I'm going around, and before he started calling me, I was so hungry for knowledge that I would pester people. That if you even look like you had some sense, I felt like the sense in your head belonged to me, and you had to give it to me. So I was, and to the point where he used to call me Spongehead. This is before SpongeBob. He used to call me Spongehead. And one day, a friend of mine, I heard he had a book by one of the Dr. York's books. And you're not supposed to go into other people's unit. My friend lived in another unit. So I sneak in his unit to get the book from him. So I'm trying not to get caught. And when I get to his cell, his was a door with the slot. So I'm looking through the slot, but he's sleeping. So it's not like normal where you could just wake him. I couldn't reach him because the door was locked. So I'm calling him. His name was True. I said, True. So I'm calling him until he wakes up. So when he wakes up, he sees these eyes poking through the thing. It scares him. Right? He said, what are you doing? Because I'm not even supposed to be in there. And I said, so I'm looking through the thing and my eyes all big. He said, what are you doing here? I said, the book. I want the book. He said, what book are you talking about? I said, give me the book. Right. So then I told him what book it was. He gets up, goes through his property. He comes back. He gives me 3 books by Dr. York. He says, he looks at me, he says, I hope you find what you're looking for. And I leave and sneak back out. So I end up going to the hole. Now let me say this, and I'll wrap it up. I know I'm going a long way, but I'm like the book, Crooked Path, right? Um, when I was about to go into prison, I don't think I had the normal fears that other people have. Not saying that I was harder or tougher, because I wasn't, but it was, I don't know if it was, I was just so focused on learning that, like I said, I wasn't trying to get with any groups. And I never remember fearing, maybe I did, I don't remember fearing people, but I did have fears. I had three fears. My first fear was
Mm.
going crazy in prison because for a while, everybody that I met that had done 8 years or more, they were off a little bit. I mean, for my first 2 years, like every person I met that had done more than 8 years, they were off. I was scared of that happening. I was also scared of being shot up with the drugs they give you, Prozine, Prolixin. Like when you're a problem, they shoot you up with these drugs. They call it like a liquid lobotomy. I mean, back in the days, they would take a piece of your brain out. They learned how to do that with chemicals. And I would see people on it. I was scared of that. The third thing that I was afraid of was going to the hole because the first time that they put you in a jail or a cell, that takes a lot of adjustment, psychological adjustment. And it took everything that I had to adjust to it. So just the notion that there's another jail in this jail, I couldn't fathom that. That you telling me there's another place in here worse than this. I was scared to go, but ended up there anyway. And I ended up in the hole. I remember it was Noble Drew Ali's birthday. And I ended up in the hole because three guards attacked me, but they said that I had attempted to attack them. Right? So I end up in the hole for something I didn't do. That became a theme in my bid, right? So Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us white man is a devil. Well, in the world that the devil has produced, there's hell. Like we say, the hells of North America. But
Yes,
the
sir.
fact that the devil is over the hell, he wouldn't be a devil if he didn't have different degrees of hell. So every time you're one place, you think you're in hell, he has someplace worse for you. So I'm in the jail, but in the hole, there's levels in the hole. So when you go in, the first level is whether they determine if they're going to keep you. Sometimes you go in the hole, something will happen, a couple hours later, you're back out. Once they determine that they're not going to let you back out, they put you in another level. On that level, they hold you till you have what they call like a hearing to determine what they're going to do with you. So once I had my hearing, they found me guilty, even though they know I didn't do it. But they said I can't go against my officer. They know because I was very skinny, you know. Well, I get to that. So, you know, what they said I did, the guy knew I didn't do it. But he said I can't go against my officers. So once you get to that, you have no privileges. So I'm on the rock in the hole, in the jail, in the prison, and I'm reading the Bible. I'm not sure. Like, I didn't read the Bible that much at that time, but I was reading the Bible.
Yes, sir.
The older will serve the younger, and the stronger will serve the weaker. And then Jacob, as he got older, and they talked about him separating the calf, the spotted, the brown, white. And I'm sitting there focused on those words because I know it means something, but I don't know what it means.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I mean, to the point where my mind, I'm getting frustrated. And I found out later that that happened to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because his history is our history. When
Mm,
he was
mm.
a child, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would read the Bible because remember, he only went to school long enough to learn how to read and write. So
Yes,
he
sir.
would read the Bible, and his father being a preacher, and his father's father was a preacher. It's in because Sister Ava used to say that after generations, it becomes genetic. So it's
Mm,
in him. But he said that when he would read the Bible, he knew that the things that he was reading meant more than what it was saying. but he didn't know what it meant. But he also knew it didn't mean what his father said it meant, his grandfather said it meant, or any of the other preachers. But he still said he would cry because of the frustration of knowing that it meant more, but not knowing what it meant. I went through that day. I wasn't crying, but I was frustrated. I knew it meant something. And as I'm going through this, guess who walks past my cell? J.R. Cunningham. He had already had a fight. He was in the hole already, and he was a orderly. So while everybody else was in the cell, he gets to sweep up and do things. So he comes by the cell. He said, "What's going on, Sponge?" And I said, he could tell I was concentrating. And I don't know why I asked him this particular question, but I said, what does Jacob mean in Arabic? I don't know how I even knew to ask that. Without hesitation, he said, Yaqub. And it was like my brain opened. It was like one of the best feelings I've ever felt, because to have a question that's frustrating you, and then to have someone that you can ask the question and they give you an answer in one word. I never felt nothing like that before. So I don't know if you like the pattern. I was scared to go to the hole. I'm in the worst part of the hole. I'm charged with something I didn't do. And the brother comes by and he's able to tell me something that gave me maybe the most pleasure I had ever felt. Before that, in city jail, in the worst place I had ever been at the moment. And the brother, the Adon, I felt something in the beauty of what he was singing that I had never felt before. Same thing in the crack house. I'm in the crack house lost and miserable, haven't showered in 2-3 weeks, and the brother teaches me something. You see, even like the Iblis in the Quran, he says, I will come at them in their straight path. Allah came at me in my crooked path. Everywhere I turned, he was there. And I was so young and so uninformed, I wasn't aware of what was happening, but I was aware. These are moments. That's why I can tell you now, I never forgot those times. So they found me guilty of attacking these guards, and so they increased my security level. So I'm no longer in a low. And when I get there, that's the first time. Now, JR was the lessons to me then. I didn't have physical lessons. When I got to the next place, I was able to get the physical lessons, and I dove into them to the point where that's all I did. I mean, you know how most people, they go in prison, the first thing they do is they go to the weight pile because they want to get heavy, they want to get big, but they don't want to be a target. And then they go in the kitchen, they eat all the pancakes and the potatoes because they want to get big so that nobody bothers them. Not me. I was walking around skinny and proud with my books and my lessons. I wasn't concerned about, I went for years. I didn't work out anything. That's how I got the name Thin Man, actually, because when you're thin in prison, you stick out, right? So now I told you I wasn't looking for groups to join. I wasn't looking for friends, anything. You know, you would make friends. I wasn't looking for them. But I looked up one day, and other young brothers that wanted to learn about the 5%, they would come to me. And back then, New York was 5%ers was associated with guys out of New York. So I had some guys out of New York, but then there were also guys from Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, California, Milwaukee, North Carolina. So even though I wasn't looking for a crew to run with, I looked up one day, I had a crew that was running with me, right? And I remember standing with the minister of the Nation of Islam in that prison at the time, a brother named John X. He's a very hard man out of Washington, D.C. And we were talking, and he said, it was just he and I, and he said, wow, he said, you know what, brother? It looks like the Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation are the fastest growing communities on the compound. Because guys grew, right? And so eventually I did join the Nation of Islam. I had told you about that before, how that came about. And the brother who was the minister at the time was named Brother Muhammad. He was out of Philadelphia, and he was a stick-up man, right?
Mm-mm.
um, on the street. Now, Brother Muhammad was a big brother. To this day, I couldn't tell you what he looked like because he had these very dark shades or glasses, but you couldn't see his eyes. I never saw the brother's eyes. And
Mm.
it was so hard that when I joined, they told me, said, whatever you do, don't touch the minister. He don't play that. Right? So you can shake his hand, but that's as far as he lets you go. You couldn't touch the minister, right? And I couldn't understand. You can't touch the minister. One day I tried him, actually. We were talking, and he's a big guy. He had on these dark shades. So I'm from New York. I talk with my hands. So I'm talking, and I decided to see what's going to happen if I touch the minister, right? So I'm talking, and as I'm talking, brother minister, I hit him with the back of my hand, boom, in the chest, right? And he did like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator. So I hit him in his chest, and he got the dark glasses on, and he just looks down at the spot where I hit him, and then he looks back up at me, and he looks like, is this thing crazy, right? But I'm acting like nothing happened, like I don't know what's going on, because I'm thinking, it's the minister. I just touched it. What are you gonna do? Punch me in the face, right? So anyway, Brother Muhammad was the first minister, and the assistant minister was a brother out of New York named Brother Rodney. I mentioned him to you before. He's one of the ones I credit with. Without asking me to join the nation, we were friends. But just being around him, that inspired me. I saw I could do what he was doing. So one day, Brother Rodney was assistant minister. Him and I were standing around. I think we were about to have a service or something. So Brother Muhammad walks in and he says, you, follow me. So we follow him. We go into a room. He looks at Brother Rodney. He says, anything happens to me, you the minister. He looks at me. Anything happened to him, you the minister. Then he turns around and he leaves. So me and Brother Rodney look at each other and say, hope nothing ever happened to him. Right. So now fast forward a little bit, and then I'm finished with your question. The other brother that I credit with bringing me into the Nation of Islam, Brother Johnny, he and I are still very good friends. We speak often. And we was talking on the phone because he's down there, he's in Georgia. We were talking on the phone, and I mentioned the brother that was the captain. His name was Brother Morris. And Brother Morris was actually a captain in Cleveland under Minister Rowland in the 80s. So he's the brother that taught us how to drill in prison. He's the brother that taught us how to hold post in prison. He's the one that used to tell us stories about the Nation of Islam in prison. But myself and Brother Morris, we didn't dislike each other, but we didn't like each other either. And Brother Morris, as much as he taught us, Brother Morris seemed like he always smelled like cigarettes, right? Which meant that he was probably smoking cigarettes, right? And I always felt like I said, we never had an argument or anything. It's just, some people you just don't vibe with. So years later, I'm talking to Brother Johnny on the phone, and I mentioned Brother Morris. And he said, man, you sure love Brother Morris. I said, what you mean? He said, you always bring him up. And when he said that, my eyes welled up because I didn't like Brother Morris, but I loved Brother Morris because he taught us. I know any drill, I learned drill from him. I used to ask him questions. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. My journey to Islam was like that picture. It was full of crooked men and bad places. But I know Allah is real because based on what I just told you, I should be a crooked Muslim. But I'm not. I got flaws that are all my own, but that's not one of them. I don't even litter in the street, brother. And that allows me to know. And plus, I know how I felt during those times. Those were the lowest points in my life, but Allah was there. You know that in the Malcolm X book, when he says that Master Fard Muhammad came to him in his cell.
Yes, sir.
That's almost the story of every brother that's been in prison. Not that I didn't see Master Fard Muhammad in my cell, but he was there as I went through these things.
Yes, sir.
You know? And I know that. And it is because of those little things, that's how I found Islam, to answer your question. Because, and the reason I say that is because you said your question was, when did you first hear the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Those things that I just told you prepared me to hear it because I was so crooked, you couldn't have come to me, suit, bow tie, paper, bean pie. I wasn't on that frequency. Allah came to me in the frequency I was on to prepare me for the brother with the bow tie.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. You teaching. And thank you very much, Brother Alex. Man, I got some amazing follow-up questions as well. Walaikum salam, Brother Kente. Thank dear family, Sister Miriam. Walaikum salam, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Brother Vincent Farley. He says, Assalamu alaikum, black gods, scientists, caliphs, imams, leader, etc. Be born and blessed. Thank you very much, Brother Vincent. Walaikum salam. The same to you, sir. All the black guys, scientists, caliphs, imams as well. Praise be to Allah, Brother Kente. Thank you all for showing love. All right. The follow up, man, give me some great follow up questions. Let's talk about the crack.
Yes, sir.
Right now, I always tell people it's not a generation thing, just the substance is different. But addiction has been with black people ever since I sojourned in North America. But a lot of rappers overdosing, things of this nature. This is a thing now. It's more fentanyl, 80s and the 90s, perhaps, it was crack before and heroin in the 60s and things like that with the needles and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But for you to be not bathing for so long, scratching, how were you able to overcome that? And what advice would you give to the current generation who it may not be crack necessarily, it may be dog food or whatever else it is, fentanyl, whatever the new thing is, addiction is the baseline.
Right.
If you were able to get over crack and not bathing for so many months, I mean, my God, what advice would you give? And how were you able to get over? What made you get in the shower, in the bath?
Well, I wasn't smoking crack.
Okay.
I wasn't smoking crack.
Okay, what was going on there? You got cleared up there.
I was living in the crack house because it was like my crack house. My friend gave me the crack house to run it.
Okay.
So I was living there because I was working there. But because I didn't have any place else to go, that's why I never left.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? Eventually I just went somewhere to take the shower, but part of it not taking the shower that's just the state I was depressed.
Mm.
And I didn't really want to leave, like I said, I would go out, eat, come back. But as far as the addiction, my wife and I were in Kansas City, I think it was last month, and we went to the Jazz Museum. And I remember when we left, I was thinking about Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker, they said he was so high one day, he gave a performance in a particular club. And after the performance, he was so high, he went into the phone booth and he peed in the phone booth. Mm-hmm. And the owner of the club kicked him out of the club, told him, "Don't come back because you peed in my phone booth." But he was so talented that eventually I think he'd even gotten clean. And he came back to the same club and they said he gave the best performance he had ever given. Yes, and he was clean. And he said, so when everybody was agreeing it was the best performance they had, he was great, he's a genius, and he was sober. And said when he finished the performance, he went into the same phone booth, peed in it again, right? Just because. But anyway, I was thinking of Charlie Parker, and when we left, and I realized that when the Quran says the earth was not created for sport and play, we say that. But okay, we believe that. What happens when you devote your life to sport and play? It has to be consequences. And when you look at these geniuses that not always, but a lot of times they find themselves with these addictions or these destructive lifestyles, it's because in order for them to be so good, they have to devote themselves to it. That becomes their religion. But the black man, we not made for the instrument or martial arts or the sports. That's not made to be, we're not to bow down to that. And although as fans, we enjoy and we bask in your gift, it doesn't do for you what it does for us because you're putting everything into something that can't satisfy you. So now you're looking for something deep that it can never satisfy them the way Allah would satisfy them. So, and I think that's what that is with the entertainers now, is like with my son, when you're lost, it's easy. I remember the minister said that about and have children, and this guy's trying to put you on the block. That automatically clashes with your plan. I can't do it and be on the block. But if you have nothing going for you and you have no plans for yourself, and this guy come up and he's slick talk you to think that I got a plan for you, you find yourself on the block. And just to mention, just for the sake of conversation, that's why the old pimps, they wore the perms and the fur coats, and they wore the diamonds, and they had their nails manicured because they were trying to catch women. They were showing the women that I have all the things you want. Your hair not perm, my hair is perm. You know, you want diamonds, I got diamonds. You want a fur, I got the fur coat. That would convince the women that maybe I should listen to him. He has all the things that I would like to have. But yes.
Yes, sir. Okay, to just go right there with you, I also read Don Juan. One of his first books was dealing with from pimping to the pulpit, and how that same psychology went into the church and the preachers who would dress like pimps. They saw, you know what I'm saying? How he said he didn't have to not get fly he had to take off his fur and stuff when he became a preacher. He was like, who would dress better than a preacher?
Right,
you know what I'm saying, to attract the congregation.
Right. I never heard that.
It's in his book.
And since we are we're building on pimps, they said, who is that said? I think it was Iceberg Slim. He was saying that the civil rights movement put a big blow into the pimp game because at one point the pimps were the only ones that really had these things. He said once they had the civil rights movement and they opened up the integration, he said now the guy with the shoe shine stand, he got a Cadillac. And the guy in the factory got a Cadillac, you know. So it took the mystique away from the pimps, right? But so that to answer you, that I think that a lot of the addiction that you see is because we don't have or don't know that there's anything else. We're lost. Because like I said, just like the woman that doesn't have a plan, as a man, if you don't have a plan, somebody can convince you to get high or to get drunk or to rob a store or to do that because it probably sounds better than what you're doing.
Excellent. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Brother Alex. And thank you everyone who's watching all around the world. Brother Nelson Ramos says, Assalamu alaikum, beloved family. Walaikum salam, sir. Shout out to our brother out of Connecticut. And shout out to our YouTube family as well. Brother Musa, Brother Kente, Sister Auntie, Sister Hope, Brother Duke out of Canada. Just thank you to everyone who's watching our shows. Love to our Brother Alex. We have a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast, and we're coming back. Everybody stay tuned. We have so many more follow-up questions. This is great. Thank you again, Brother Alex, for taking time out of your busy schedule. We are grateful for every like, share, subscription, and as well as Anonymous Cash App. Thank you all very much for your support and showing love to the People's Podcast. And we are live with the People's Podcast. Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Perfect. Thank you to all the People's Podcast affiliates. Thank you to please let us know which city you all are watching from. And if you have any guest suggestions, please put those in the comments and or message me like many of you all do on social media, and we'll make sure that we sign you all right up. Thank you very much. My next question for you, Brother Alex, is I wanted to speak about, the male-female prison. Orange is the New Black is one of my favorite shows of all time, by the way, so that's great. But how did that, with so much, as they they use the term because everything is getting canceled now, but assault. You know, they say SA going on in men prison, and then you put the women and the men. How did that work without that
No,
just going crazy?
it was you shared the same land, but there was you every once in a while you'd see
Mm.
a woman. You didn't really you didn't interact.
Okay,
So like
okay.
if you got sick, you went to the hospital, you might see one on the other side of the glass or something, but you didn't see them. In fact, I don't think the whole time I was there, I never saw one. I just knew they were there. I never
Mm,
saw.
mm, mm. Okay, great. I just wanted to understand. I was about to say that's a whole nother TV show. If you got relationships, know about your favorite memory with Minister Hafiz, sir.
Okay, yeah, I was his security and driver
Mm,
for a time, but well, one of the security and one of the drivers. My favorite story about Brother Hafiz, and I always tell people when I tell a story, it's a little bit self-serving when I tell the story, but when I was released from prison and came to New York, Ben Chavis, who was Benjamin Muhammad at the time, was the minister, and Brother Aziz, who had done the time for falsely in prison for killing Malcolm X, he was the captain. One thing I can say for the believers that I had contact with, nobody really said, people had thoughts, but you didn't hear a lot of whispering, slack talk in regards to that. So me coming home, that was just the reality. I had never had another minister. I had never had another captain. That's what I came home to. Now, I don't know if you know, but in the 90s, there was a journalist, a black journalist named Peter Noel. And at the time, he was very famous in certain circles for writing articles about not just the Nation of Islam, but Mosque Number 7.
mm,
So he could
mm,
write articles about Mosque Number 7 and clearly had people in the mosque that were feeding him information.
mm, mm,
So it was almost like a soap opera. You could read about what was happening. You didn't have to be in the mosque. You could read about what was going on in the mosque. I was in Marion, Illinois, in a supermax prison in the hole, reading about Mosque Number 7.
mm,
And even before, like before Brother Conrad left, he said it before Brother actually left.
mm,
So anyway, in around 99, 2000, he wrote an article. That's when the minister was very ill. And he had written an article titled something like Farrakhan on his deathbed. Right?
mm,
So Brother Ben goes on a radio program along with Peter Noel to discuss that. I
mm,
forget who the moderator was, but they're on the radio, and it was a Sunday. I was dressed on my way to the mosque, but something when I heard that they were going to be on the radio, I stopped to listen. And Brother Hafiz always taught about being on time to the mosque. He would always say that we are there to greet the guest. So you should be there early so that you're in the right frame of mind to greet the guest. He says when you're late and you're running late, you're thinking about what your lieutenant's gonna say and what you're gonna say back to him, and you got your excuse ready or you got your reasons ready. You're thinking about everything except the guest. So you're not in the spirit to receive the guest because some of the guests got there before you get there. So I used to always want to be on time. But that day, the radio guy kept saying, Peter Noel, a journalist with impeccable credentials. He said it once. They talk some more. He says it again. The third time he says it, Brother Ben says, you keep saying that this brother has impeccable credentials, but the only reason we are here is because he wrote something that was untrue of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Therefore, how impeccable can his credentials be? Which, of
mm,
course, was a shot at the brother.
mm, mm,
The brother, to his credit, he took the shot. He didn't say anything. So now they're talking some more. So Brother Ben is saying, yes, in the Nation of Islam, we believe this. And in the Nation of Islam, we do this. And here in the Nation of Islam, so the brother jumps in. He says, how would you know? You a new jack in the Nation of Islam. That's his exact words. I must say, Brother Ben, he didn't take his shot as well as Peter Noel took his shot. So they began to bicker. And then they began to argue. And then they began to scuffle. And then they began to tussle. Then it sounded like they was fighting in the studio. So I'm standing there. I have my suit and my white shirt and my bow tie, and I'm looking at the radio. I can't see it. I'm looking at the radio like, these niggas is fighting. Right? So they calm it down. The show is over. I go to the mosque, but I'm late. So the mosque is going, the meeting is going on. Brother Hafiz speaks, acceptances, everything. People leave. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like I said, Brother Hafiz was like 36 at the time. He liked to stay late in the morning at the mosque. So he had his office, and outside of his office was like a waiting area with chairs and a couch, table. So myself and maybe 3, 4, 5 brothers, we're just lounging around. Brother Hafiz is in his office. And the subject comes up about the interview. Now, I haven't said anything all day. So one of the brothers is saying, yeah, Ben Chavis, but Minister Benjamin, he didn't take no shorts. You know, the brother talked about he defending the minister. And I said, no, nah, brother, that's not what happened. So I explained to them what I just explained to you. And I said, nah, brother. I said, he wasn't defending the minister. So he was defending himself. As soon as I said that, from Brother Hafiz's office, you know, he had big hands. All you heard was, boom, that's right. And we just got quiet. We didn't even know he was listening. So maybe 10, 15 minutes later, Brother Hafiz comes out. I'm sitting on the couch still, same spot. And he's standing next to me. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, that's right, brother. He said, whenever you go out on a mission, never let it get personal. Because the moment you let it get personal, you are no longer on the mission. I remember that. Even with my channel, I remember that. Never, once you get personal, you're no longer on the mission. Now, the beautiful thing, and the reason why I say that's my favorite story of Brother Hafiz, because it said a lot about his character. That's all he said. He didn't say, you know, I knew I wouldn't have done that if it was me. He didn't say none of that. He didn't say anything about Minister Benjamin, but the way he responded when he said that's right, he had been holding it. And he still held it because he never spoke again. He didn't get personal. He stayed on his mission as his support for the brother, even though he know what he know or heard what he heard, but he never. And I know it took a lot because, like I said, with just maybe 3, 4, 5 of us there, he could have held court and told us what he thought, but he didn't do that. He gave God, in the midst of all of that, he gave me guidance that I use to this day.
Beautiful. All praises to Allah. Okay, you stay right here. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Okay, so they physically fought on the radio, but people couldn't see it. You only hear the physical fight.
Right.
That's crazy. Okay,
I don't know how many people actually heard it, but I stayed there. I listened to it.
This is beautiful. This is why I love the People's Podcast, because I love this is secondary source, primary source history of what, you know what I'm saying, what took place. Man, okay, this is Peter Noel and Benjamin Chavis.
Yes, sir.
This is wild. Okay, boom, physical fight. But Alex, per usual, your number's going up. So this is on YouTube. Everybody will want to hear the story because it's like this is great. And how come nobody else ever talked about it? All right, beautiful. All right. Excellent. My next question, sir, is so that's a great story. I mean, a lot of people use Minister Hafiz, and I wanted to speak about the Norman Butler.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I wanted to address that and Malcolm X and Norman Butler and how all of that came about and your connection and understanding.
Well, a lot of the brothers had interactions with Brother Aziz when he was a captain. A lot more than me. I actually worked with him because he had a security company, and what was the word he used? He had a word for like if you like to be in the upper echelons of it, and kind of like growing up business. I forgot the word he used, but he gave those of us that were the first ones to link up with him in his security business the option to be. I forgot the word he used, but like a piece of the company, so to speak.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In fact, I remember the first meeting that we had, he was explaining that to us. And as a brother started asking him questions, and he said, okay, brother, you're dismissed. You can leave. And brother said, what? He said, yeah, brother, I'm trying to build something. I ain't got time to be entertaining them kind of questions. Either you with it or you're not. You can leave. So um, in fact, brother Aziz, my first martial arts, not first, but one of my martial arts instructors, Latif Sadek. I mentioned him to you before.
Yes, sir.
He was not only was he a student of Dr. Moses Powell starting in 1960. Sanuka started in 1959. He started training with Dr. Powell in 1960. He was also under Captain Yusef Shah. And he said that before Moses Powell came on the scene teaching brothers in the mosque, he said they would go up to train with Brother Aziz and his brother Norman. He said, Brother Norman. He said, Brother Norman he said, man, Brother Norman was bad. That's his exact words. And he said, Brother Aziz now lived in the Bronx. He said, so we would pack up a car and travel from Brooklyn to the Bronx just to train with him. Now, I was told, I've never seen this, but that he had an issue with the NYPD. And when they ran into his home, he actually like karate chopped one of the helmets. And I've been trying to get the paper. Grandmaster Law Freedom told me this, and somebody else told me also. But Grandmaster Law Freedom, he's been trying to find that article because he said he has it. That on the front page of the New York Daily News, he said there was a picture of the police helmet with the dent in it, to the effect of what the Muslims. This is what the Muslims did. And I was also told that because of the injuries that he sustained, this was right before the murder of Malcolm X, that was one of the reasons everybody know that he wasn't involved, because he wasn't in condition to be running up in the Audubon murdering somebody and getting away, right? But also there's a documentary called Brother Minister, where the people that were with Malcolm, that are alive with Malcolm, they said that we know he wasn't there because everybody knew him. And if he would have, if that brother would have walked through the door, all the alarms would have went off. It wouldn't have been, So, and that's what that's in the documentary, Brother Minister. But that's really all I can really say about Brother Aziz.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's great history. Yes, sir. He was injured, so he couldn't have been there. What type of man? And yes, sir, that's great history. And what was it like being in the military under him as opposed to other captains? What was the difference for someone who came from the first resurrection prior to 75 versus the FOY captains on this side of the cavalry? What was that
Okay,
like?
well, that's great. Well, I've only had three, I guess you'd say. I came home, Captain Aziz was the captain.
Okay, okay.
In Brooklyn, the first officer is pretty much the captain, because you don't have two captains in the city. So Captain Richard, who is the captain in number 7, he was the first officer in Brooklyn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I remember he gave me some very good advice, because I was thinking of quitting my job, working for myself. And I don't often ask advice, but I remember asking him one night what he thought about that. And he told me something that I always kept. He said, only thing, brother, when you work for yourself, you have to work for yourself just as hard as you would work for a boss. Because normally, you go on a job, they tell you 8 hours, you do 8 hours. Sometimes you do overtime. And he said, well, but normally when you work for yourself, you might not put 8 hours into your own thing. So you have to put as much time into working for yourself than you would put into working for somebody else, and even more because it's yours. Now, Captain Richard, I think he has his own. I don't know a lot of Cap, but I would bank that he's very unique in
Yes,
his
sir.
approach, and he's been successful at it. And so I've known Captain Richard as a captain, and I've also known Brother Salim
Yes,
as a
sir.
captain.
Yes, sir.
And the thing I like to say about Brother Salim is how much he's grown. Because when I met him, he's a couple years younger than me. So I think he might have been like 24. And he was like, I don't even think he was a lieutenant then. He was the head of Minister Security. So my relationship with him was there. And like I told you before, we would spend a lot of time in my car carrying Brother Hafiz places and waiting for him to come out of his apartment. And I would pick Brother Salim up and we would go to the mosque. And he wasn't even driving back then.
Mm,
And
mm.
I see how over the years, how he has matured in his post. And because before, I think Brother Salim was like a psychology student in college.
Mm.
So he used to do stuff like that. You know, he would like almost like I would feel like he was playing head games when he was younger. And some of the brothers would be just shaking with rage because of his, trying to. But I look at him now and I see how smooth he is and how um, hard it is to rattle him. Where he'll be the calm one in the room or in the situation. But those are the only three captains that I've known.
Mm.
And I'll say something else, similar to what I said about Brother Hafiz, not speaking ill of the leadership at the time. When I first came home, all Brother Salim would say is, "You picked a strange time to join the Nation of Islam." That's all
Mm.
he would say. But he was talking about, we have, the way things were going then. That's all he wouldn't say anymore. He said, "Pick a strange time to come into the Nation of Islam."
Mm.
And looking back, I appreciate the fact that the brothers that could have um, spoken ill of the leadership, they didn't. Because, like I said, sometimes it would just be me and him in the car. He could have been talking all about whoever, but he never did that. And that reminds me of something that Minister Abdullah once said, as far as slack talk and gossip. He said, "You know when you're slack talking and gossip is when you're talking to somebody that can't do anything about it."
Mm. Mm.
That's the criteria. If I'm talking to you and you can do something about it, that's not necessarily slack talk and gossip.
That's
So
powerful.
he wouldn't speak to me about it. I could do nothing about it. It would have been slack talk and gossip.
You teaching, bro, Alex? Yes, sir. And salute to all of the captains and everybody. Please go back and watch for the Captain Richards interviews, and, as well as Brother Salim, two great leaders in our nation's history and very kind brothers. So shout out to them. Yes, sir. And thank you everyone who was watching and showing love to Brother Alex. Brother Alex, man, you came with it today per usual. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you about um ninjutsu. Can you explain about your theory and philosophy of ninjutsu?
Well, then people again, like when you and I were speaking before, the movies have a lot to do with our perception of these real things. Ninjutsu is a real thing, but our perception of it is in reality because you had a lot of ninjas back in those days in Japan that didn't even know how to fight or didn't fight.
Mm, mm.
People, because they make movies and they show ninjas fighting, but not ninjas main and Kiyoshi Colleague Lewis he's a very good authority on this. But intelligence gathering, espionage, surveillance, those were really the primary skills of a ninja.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fighting was just a plus to that. And because of the status of and now the ninjutsu, the fighting part of ninjutsu is really jujitsu with a different attitude.
Mm.
Meaning the samurais practiced jujitsu, but the samurais were like the highest authority after the shogun and what you know. So they were like the police in a way, and they had a culture of not running, being fearless, not being captured, honor. The ninja were different. The ninja were poor.
Mm.
So,
Mm. Mm.
in fact, I'll go back to Khalid, brother Khalid. When I first met him, I went to his dojo. This is a good example. And two brothers were working on a technique he was showing, a wrist throw. So one brother wrist threw the other brother perfectly. So Kiyoshi Kalik says that was perfect, except you should have held on to. He said
Mm.
because ninja, if you would have threw a ninja like that, he would have ran off into the bushes.
Mm.
That epitomizes the difference between a ninja and a samurai. You would never say that of a samurai, that it would be characteristic of him to run off into the bushes. So even when you look at the stance of a ninja, they utilize the back stance a lot so they
Go
can
ahead and
run.
see. Go ahead.
So, and also they had, I forgot what the name of this is. There's a mask that they would wear, and it was made to look scary. And you know how people wear the hat backwards? The mask you wore it on the back of your head.
Mm.
Reason being is so that when the ninjas, after they had created their havoc and killed whoever they needed to kill, when they were running away, it would freak you out because the face would be on the back, but they were running away from you. So ninja is more of a mindset than a particular fighting system.
You teacher, brother Alex. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. You going deep. Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Continues to show love. Can't wait to upload this to YouTube. But Alex, I have a question. Do you, for people who are watching this, and how can we contact you? How can people contact you? Social media, email, and would you offer training to someone?
Well, first, I'll answer the last one first. I do a class. I started when I was working for the what they call the crisis management team in New York, Man Up Inc. Brother A.T. Mitchell, who was the head of that, he allowed me to work on the rudiments of a class that I put together, and I call it the Art of Advantage.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I don't feel I'm qualified to be a martial arts instructor. However, all right, you have people right now. How old are you, brother Josh?
I'm an actor, brother Alex. I don't want to talk about
You
my
don't
age.
tell it. In fact, it wouldn't be good to use you as an example anyway because you've trained. You've trained, so you're not a good example anyway.
Yes, sir.
But let's just say you have a man that's 35 years old, right?
Mm,
Never trained any martial arts at all. There's people that we know that haven't lived to be 35. You have people that are 25, 45, 55. They're alive and well, never trained any martial arts, but they're still here. That
mm,
means that they know something. And whatever they done to get them this far in life, that's their martial art. Kason Allah, Professor Kason Allah, may Allah be pleased with it. He used to tell me every man is his own style. So, but what happens is because of TV, we see things, we like what we see, then we knock on somebody's dojo to teach us what we saw on TV or in
mm.
movies. But the minister taught us that the word educate means to draw out. I believe that combat is something you bring out of a person. There's things that you teach them because there's things you don't know, but there's certain things that you bring out. It was something I wanted to say about that, and maybe it'll come back to me. Um, Martial arts is something that you do during peaceful times.
Mm.
The conversations that you have in barbershops about who could beat who and what style is better, these are things you do in peaceful times because nobody's dying. So you have time to talk. But if a war was going on and people were dying, those conversations would not only would those conversations go away, all the sports, there would be no sports, there would be none of these are things that you do when things have calmed down and you have time to study it and practice it because just the term martial art is a beautiful thing. Like calligraphy and dancing and singing, you have time to cultivate it as an art.
And
Fine.
teaching.
The next level is self-defense. Martial arts is beautiful. Self-defense is not as beautiful as martial arts. The next stage is survival. Survival is not beautiful at all. When you watch lions and tigers and alligators and all of that, what you see is not beautiful. But what? They're surviving. Some are eating, some are getting ate. Some are surviving, some are not making it through. That's natural. But so I'm sorry. You asked me a question. I don't want to go too far off away from. So what I do in the Arts of Advantage is I see the value in seminars, but I also see the disadvantage in seminars. Meaning, let's say I'm a great martial artist, I walk into a room, 15 people are in the room. The first thing I need to realize is that these are not my students. We just happen to be in the same place, and Allah is giving me the opportunity to share something with them. So since these are not my students, maybe the best thing not to do is to teach them techniques. Because if I walk into the room and I say, okay, I'm going to teach you 3 techniques, and I teach 3 techniques to people who are not my students, I know, you know, and they know that it's going to take hours and hours and hours of practicing those 3 techniques until you're confident enough to use them in a life or death situation, if that situation even comes up. And most people are not going to do that. Now, let's just say that they do. They put the hours and hours and hours into those 3 techniques. Guess what? At the end of the day, it's still only 3 techniques. What you going to do with that? You know? So my idea is you teach concepts. See, you can teach a person a martial concept. They don't even have to get up out of the chair. And they'll walk away a better fighter.
Go ahead and teach.
I knew a brother one time. He was from Yemen, little guy. I was in the store he was working, and we're talking martial arts. And he's sitting on one of those bar stools, with your legs swinging, right? So he says, why don't you show me something? And when he asked me that, it changed me, because the way my mind went, there's nothing that I could really show him that would change his reality. He wants techniques. He wants me to show him a technique, right? So I looked, and there was a broomstick leaning against the wall. I said, you see that broomstick? He said, yes, sir. I said, if someone were to try to hit you with that broomstick, there's certain things you would have to understand about their psychology and your psychology. Meaning, the reason he's picking up the stick is only 2 reasons. He's either trying to intimidate you, or he's trying to beat you at a distance. He doesn't want to get close. So he picks up something that allows him to beat you without getting close to you. That's his psychology, right? Your psychology is, when you see that stick, is to back up. But once you understand his psychology, you know that the last thing you're supposed to do is back up, because when you back up, you're giving him the distance that he wants in the first place, or you're going to back up to the point where you run. Either way, you're playing his game, right? So you have to override your instinct to back up and go forward. That's how Holyfield beat Tyson.
Come on. Okay.
Holyfield said that when he studied Mike Tyson, he realized most people that fought Tyson, they fought him going backwards. So he says that as an intelligent man, I know the last thing I want to do is to try to fight Tyson going backwards. Let me go forward. you know.
Yes, sir.
So arts of advantage is that. It's the concepts because there's certain concepts in combat that even if you do it poorly, you can save yourself. The art is about doing it perfect, doing it right, doing it the way Master so and so taught it. That's the art. But the survival is doing it. I don't care how it looks. If you can do it, get it off, save your ass, you good. We'll worry about we'll clean it up later. One more point, and this is kind of like where I got. There's a Jewish man whose material that I study a lot, named Moshe Feldenkrais. Check this out. He was one of the first Jews to go to Israel, to Palestine, when they had taken it from the Palestinians as a teenager. So this is when they were building. It wasn't even set up. And they said some German Jews came over that knew jujitsu and started training the young guys. These young Jews would train together. Now, the Palestinians, as you can imagine, they're upset that these people are on their land. So every once in a while, they would make a raid. The Palestinians had knives and swords. One night, they make a raid, or one day, whatever, they make a raid. When it's all done and over, Moshe Feldenkrais realized two things: that all of the people, pretty much all of the people that he used to train with were dead. The martial artists were dead. The ones that had no training were alive. Why?
Mm.
Because the ones that were training, they thought that their training was enough to have them handle them knives and them swords. And they
Mm.
found out the wrong way or the hard way that it was not.
Mm.
The ones that survived knew they couldn't handle the knives and the swords. They got up out the way. So, but he also noticed that the ones that were killed, that when the knives came out, they reverted back to what they would do before they learned anything. They didn't do martial arts. They did what everybody else does, right? So he developed a system where he would teach people based off of your natural response.
Mm.
So
Mm.
somebody, like say the guy hitting you with a stick, a martial artist would say, no, 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 no. You do this and you do this and you do that. What this guy's saying, he would say, nah, okay, that's good. You got the idea. You covered your head. You know, that's smart. You covered your head and you got small. Now what we got to get you to do is to not close your eyes and to watch. You understand?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
The same thing, just clean it up a little bit. And now you got something, you know. So that's kind of like my approach, is these little things. And I got that also. One of my teachers for a moment was Soki Hassan Khalik here in New York. He had a class called TNT, Tactical Neutralization Training. And man, what did he say? Man, I forgot why I brought Soki Hassan up. It'll come back to me. But Soki Hassan, he's such a martial arts. I used to call it, I'd say genius, let's say.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
That there have been times that I've spoken to Soke on the telephone. And by the time I hung up that telephone, I could fight better.
Mm.
Not because he showed me, but he explained certain concepts that I wasn't aware of. Now I know, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure I'm not standing there. And also what I do in the Arts of Advantage is a lot of it is cultural, meaning we come up under these white people with the caveman thing where they just want to bang each other to death, beat each other into submission. So we come up with that where that chest to chest, eye to eye, toe to toe.
Yes, sir.
So, but if you notice in a lot of the martial arts, especially in Sanukis, Dr. Powell taught about getting out of the way, respecting the man, respecting the fact that this is a 150, 175, 200-pound man. So instead of standing in front of you, let me move in such a way where I make myself safer as I fight you. You know, there's a difference between, that's why people that don't understand, like Floyd Mayweather, they say Floyd Mayweather runs, but the only running is if you leave the ring. Just because you can't catch him don't mean that he's running. Just because he knows
Yes,
how to
sir.
move. And remember, the
Yes,
first
sir.
law of the universe is motion. So, and the black man, when we fight, we move. We're not supposed to stand in front of you and like two battering rams and see who drops first. We move with precision. And when the minister in the 90s, when he used to watch boxing a lot, he would always say the angles. He liked the angles. See the math in it. So we learn how to move to, but just getting somebody out of the mindset of standing in front of the person.
Yes, sir.
Teddy Atlas said that once.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He said, you know how your mother would tell you when you're little, don't stand on the corner, nothing good happens there. He said, well, don't stand in front of the person. Nothing good's gonna happen there. So just getting the person to move is 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 um is a task. You know, you're not for instance, in Sanukis, when you get out of the way, if you next time you watch somebody, the shoulders and the hips never leave the person. I'm moving, but my body is still focused on that individual. That's not running. Running is when you turn your whole body and you taking yourself out of the fight. Just because I'm moving out of the way, I haven't taken myself out of the fight.
Yes, sir.
It's like a pit bull. You have a wild pit bull and he jumps at you and he snaps at your face, but you manage to parry him and you throw him into the wall. You got like 2 seconds to celebrate because guess what? He's gonna come back. So you can't just block and move. You have to, as Grandmaster Cam would say, you have to take the fight out of the person. And the only way you can take the fight out of the person is you have to stay in the fight until you can take the fight out of the person. There's ways that you do that.
Go ahead, brother Alex. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone who's watching all around the world. This has been a great interview. If you are just coming, gotta make sure you watch from the beginning of the interview. We'll upload to YouTube soon. Alex gave a great history of Mosque Number 7, martial arts, prison stories, motivation, all of this. I have one more question for you, sir. And then I hope everybody stay tuned for our next interview. Brother Alex, I gotta put you on the hot seat though. Can you come back for a part 4? Can we make, because we got other points we need to get to
Of
today.
course, brother. I enjoy speaking with you. I like what you're doing. I told you earlier, what you do is similar to an audit. You know, you push the person's mind. And Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this. He said, as believers, we should ask each other questions
Mm,
because when we ask each other questions and we get an answer, Allah starts to show me what He's doing with you. And as your brother, guess what? When I see it, now I can tell you because
yes,
there's
sir.
certain things about yourself you won't see. So there's certain things about myself I won't see unless you tell me.
Mm, beautiful. Yes, sir. I just wanted to bear witness to one of your points about not being physically able to do a certain kind of move, but learning so much from that. There was a brother, may Allah be pleased, named Brother Kadir. He's from New York. And he, prior to 75, First Resurrection, all of that. But by the time I met him, I worked in my father's bookstore when I first moved to Atlanta. And he was, I love chess. So he would come in and play chess with me. But then while we were playing chess, he was like, man, when you on post, you are so serious, you are so tight. What's up? You like to fight? And that's all I love to do is fight. And he will be like, well, this is what we used to do in New York. And he'd be like, I kind of do like, yeah, and I kind of like, man, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I've learned more from this older brother about, I'm talking about, he taught me some things that I, to this day, I'll never forget.
Right.
And if you saw him in the suit on, you would, it wasn't like he was in his 70s or 80s, but he was already past the age of just, I'm standing on honor like this. But
Right.
I could tell in his day, he was one of them. And
Yes.
he was like, brother, when you move, he was like, just let you know, make sure you get yours off before they get theirs off. Make sure you
Yes.
stay like,
Uh,
I was like,
yes. Yes.
lobby you please,
Yeah.
brother there. He
Yeah.
was a warrior, and I learned so much from him. And I don't even know outside of his family do people know how that he was a martial. He never carried it like that. I think he was
Right.
a baker. I think, matter of fact, I think he was a baker in New York. I think he
Right.
baked. I think he was a baker, but he knew and he taught me a lot without physically doing all that. So shout out to
Yeah.
brother. But I
Those are the
wanted to ask
two.
you the last question, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone who was watching. I want to about delivering your own
Ah,
children
Okay,
Yes, sir. Let's
right.
talk about that.
Yes, we shift gears. We don't want to go off on. We don't want to go out on war mode, or maybe we do. But um, okay. My growing up, you watch these sitcoms and these movies, and the woman is pregnant and they building it all up until the time, especially a sitcom. There might be the whole season the lady's pregnant, and
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
big
Yes, sir.
episode when she's gonna have the baby and the man is tripping over the shoes and it's funny and then everybody, the whole country celebrates the baby's born. It's on the newspaper the next day. Um, you can experience something like that if you trust white people.
Mm,
If you don't trust white people, you have the opposite of that experience
mm, mm,
because you're going in there on guard.
mm, mm,
They're trying to shoot your wife up. They're trying to shoot your children up. You know about the doctors, ministers, nurses, cremated. You already in war mode. I've almost had to fight doctors before. So when my
mm,
wife, 14 years ago, when she said that she was pregnant with our son Ibn, immediately joy and trepidation because yes, she's pregnant, wife's pregnant. But the other side is I got to deal with these crackers in this hospital. So I'm keeping it to myself. It's like a weight on me the whole time. I'm thinking about the baby, but I'm thinking about the crackers. So one day, now she bought a book called Husband Assisted Childbirth.
mm,
And this book is such that where you educate yourself enough as the husband that when you go into the delivery room, you can be more active because you know what to do somewhat. She didn't have me read the whole book. She had like 2, 3 chapters I was supposed to read. I never read it, right? I
mm,
might have gotten to reading it, but I hadn't read it. One day we were sitting in the living room. She was sitting behind me. And you have to pardon me. I'm going to tell you what she said. Pardon me. So she says, behind me, she says, we talk all that shit about white people. But the moment something serious happens, we run right to them.
mm,
We need
mm,
to have this baby at home.
mm,
And when she said that, it was like that bag of bricks on my shoulder, somebody took it right off. And
mm,
I was
mm,
like, okay, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but let's do it. So from that point on, she started educating herself. Every time I would come home, books and videos for months. That's all she did. And when it was time to deliver, she went into labor at, let's say, 10 o'clock. By 10:30, our son was born. Because
mm,
because one, you might say, man, that seems quick. But what she found out was that one of the reasons why these labors take so long in the hospital is because the woman, in order for you to go to the hospital, that means that she feels like she's about to have that baby. It's time. Let's go. This is real. The minute you get into the hospital, they put you on your back. That slows things down. No animal you see has babies on their back. And
mm,
the putting the woman on her back is really for their benefit, not hers, because they don't want you to fall. It's easier for them to put you on your back and not have you walk around. You're supposed to walk and, there's things you do. So she knew that. Then she also said about far as most animals, they find a dark place to have to give birth. But in the hospital, of course, they have all these bright lights for their purpose. I mean, you want them to be able to see,
yes,
but
sir.
that's what the lights are for. So Ibn was born quickly. We washed him up and went to bed. So by say she went into labor at 10 o'clock, by 11 o'clock, the three of us were in the bed sleeping. Right?
Mm,
Years later, the twins are 9. So 4 or 5 years later, she's pregnant again. She says she finds out that she's pregnant with twins. Uh, so I'm like, well, how are we gonna do that? She said, we're gonna do it like we did the first one, right? We're gonna do
mm,
it here. Said, okay. Now in New York, a midwife and a doula will not deliver twins in the house, from what she told me, that legally they're not supposed to. So now she's carrying twins. Her stomach, if you will, was so big that when we would walk down the street, people would stop to look at her. That's how big her stomach was. The day that she went into labor, the night, she went into the bathroom to use the bathroom. She's on the toilet. I'm about to help her up off the toilet. As soon as she gets up, she said, whoa. She sits back down. Daughter comes out in the toilet, right? Man. Now, we have 6 children, right? Out of those 6 children, my daughter that was born in the toilet was the only one born with the sac. So she was born in the toilet, but the water never touched my daughter because she was still in the sac. So I took her out of the toilet, took her out of the sac. And to this day, she got mad at me today. She doesn't like when I tell people she was born in the toilet, right? She'll stop talking to me for like a couple of hours when I tell her that. I try to tell her, he was in the bag though. He was in the bag. But and so then my son, so now she had one, she still got another one. So I have my daughter, and she just goes, as soon as she gets out the bathroom, there's an entranceway. She just lays, she gets on her hands and knees on the floor in the entrance. So as soon as I walk out, the blood and what have you is slippery. So I start slipping, but I'm in my mind, thought travel at 24 billion miles per second. I'm saying, I can't drop my daughter. So I don't know how. That's how slippery the floor was. I don't know how I didn't fall, but I didn't fall. So I put my daughter down. She's just born. I put her down because now we got another one. He comes out feet first. So I'm not panicking because she's not panicking. So everything comes out except the head. So I'm telling her, I said, just push. And she's saying, no, you have to wait for the contraction. See, that's when you hear about women tearing their vagina, is because the doctors, they don't tell you that you push on the contraction. So they just have push. They have you pushing when you're not supposed to push, and the women tear herself, right? So I'm telling my wife to push. The baby's, everything is out but the head. So I'm telling her to push, and she's telling me, no, we got to wait for the contraction. Just relax, right? So, the contractions come, son comes out. We do the same thing. We clean him up, feed him. 4 of us go to bed.
My God. That's magnificent, brother. Whoa. Whoa, good, bro. Alex, man. A lot better. Your wife.
I went into this with no knowledge. I didn't know. I'm just following instructions. I didn't read them chapters. I didn't read none of them. I'm just doing what she's telling me to do.
Yes, sir. Okay, one more question for you, brother Alex. Sure. Do you think we have a couple additional People's Podcast? Do you think that you and your wife would come on and let us interview you all together to hear about the story?
You already know that I'll come on. I don't know if she'll come on. I'll come, right? But can I tell you one thing? Because you asked me something before about my wife, the way she is. That like being it is, I have to be careful what I say to her because she will make it happen. So, and this goes back to Brother Hafiz. We have a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant in Brooklyn. It's called Halal No Pork, right? And these are Chinese people from China, but they're Muslim. So it's the regular Chinese restaurant only. They don't serve pork, and the meat is halal. So that's the name of it, Halal No Pork. I know about that from Brother Hafiz. Brother Hafiz over there, let's go Halal No Pork, right? So yes, sir. I love their fried rice. But my wife is as such. My wife does not like when I bring food into the house. She doesn't like when I eat out because she puts so much into cooking and making the bread. In her mind, why would you want to eat someplace else? That's always a thing. So, but I like halal, no pork rice. So one day I'm downtown. I said, you know what? I'm gonna get me some rice. Right? So I get me some of their rice. I bring it home. She smells it. What is that? And she's looking at me. I said, I like the rice. And so to her, to her credit, she said, okay. So I eat it. She said, how was it? So she doesn't say anything. The next day, I'm in the same area, downtown Brooklyn. Stand that rice was good yesterday. I want some more. I'll buy the rice again. So I come home. Now she's tripping a little bit because it's 2 days in a row. I done bought these people rice into the house. Right? So I eat the rice. She protests a little bit. The third day, I'm not stupid. I don't bring it the third day, right? Third day I come home, she has rice made, right?
Mm,
Chinese rice.
mm,
So I eat the rice and she's standing there. She's watching me. So I finished. She said, "Well, how was it?" I said, "It was very good, baby. That's very good rice." She said, "Is it as good as the Chinese?" I said, "Oh, come on, you kid, I could make Chinese rice better than the Chinese. You know, come on, you being a little outrageous now, right?" So she said, "Okay." The next night I come in, rice again, right? She gives me the rice. I'm eating it. She's watching. She says, "How?" I said, "Wow, it's even better than last night." She says, "Yeah, but is it better than the Chinese?" I said, "You're not gonna out Chinese the Chinese. Just give it up. How you gonna make Chinese rice better than Chinese? They go up making the rice. You're not gonna do that." So the next night I come in, rice again. I sit down. She's watching me. I eat it. She says, "How is it?" I said, "Baby, this is even better than the Chinese."
mm,
And it was. Not only was it
mm,
better, she made hers with brown rice. I don't like theirs with brown rice.
mm.
I like theirs with white rice. It tastes
Yes,
different
sir.
with the brown. She made it with brown rice and made it taste better. So I said, "How did you figure out how to make the Chinese rice better than the Chinese?" She said, I found out their secret ingredient. That just scared me when she said it. I'm like, I don't know how she found out the secret. I don't know who she killed, who's tied up in the kitchen or what, right? So I said, "Well, what is this?" Is for the sisters, if sisters are listening. She said, I said, "Well, what is the secret ingredient?" She said, "Fish oil. That's
Mm,
what's missing." So she kept on until she made the rice better than the Chinese made the rice.
mm. Beautiful. Yes, sir. And on that positive note, brother Alex, this is part three. Thank everyone who's watching. Inshallah, we look forward to part four, part five. Let's continue this going. For Alex, you are a masterful storyteller. Your
I
positive energy and spirit. We appreciate that. Man, may Allah
appreciate
continue to
you.
bless you and your family, sir. Shout out to you and your family. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for watching. Up next, we got our brother out of the West Coast holding it down, Brother Lonzo. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.